Hey Giggle Squad, this is Sherry with I Love to Giggle Too. Hello, this video here, I know it's not on our regular scheduled day, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And for those that are new to the channel, you want to subscribe because it is totally free. Give the video a thumbs up. And also give the video a thumbs up and share the video and comment down below, you guys. You guys, I wanted to bring something to you guys' attention. I was going back looking at the story time, and me and my sister Tracy, and I need to get her back on here again, we're discussing some things just this morning. And throughout my whole story time, it was always, when I talked about my home life, there was always three people that I would talk about. It was either me, Tracy, or it was Barron. Barron was probably, which is my dad, was involved in a lot of the story time. But I wanted to clear something up to let you guys know that I do not hate my dad. I do not hate Barron. Me and my dad's relationship is not the greatest. Me and my dad was very abusive. Physically, mentally, psychologically, the whole 9 yards. And it took many, many years, and I don't even know why I'm doing this video, but maybe to help somebody, who knows? It took many, many years to actually say out of my mouth that I love my dad. I love him. I knew I had a caring for him, like I never wanted to see anything happen to him. But for me to say that I love him took a lot of work on myself, and to see him in a different light. You guys, is some people make it very, very hard to love them, and then to express or to say that you love them is not always easy, because sometimes when we don't like someone a whole lot, it's hard to say that you love them. But it took a lot of years of me forgiving Barron in order to say that I love him. What I learned in my process of forgiveness toward Barron was I had to see Barron for who he was and how he developed into the person that he was. So it was easy to say you inflicted pain on me and all those different things, but I needed to know Barron's story. One thing about me, I have a degree, and I've always been intrigued with psychology. I've always been intrigued with psychology due to the fact that I just didn't believe that someday one person gets up and decides to be just this evil person. Sometimes people are, now if people are born evil, I don't know, that's a whole nother topic of conversation. But sometimes things transpire in people's lives that make them develop into who they are. If they don't get the proper therapy, or use the proper tools to change their lives, they end up being in the same cycle. So I had to look at Barron through my years of forgiveness. I had to look at Barron because I was in a place, you guys, that I was stuck on just not liking him. I was stuck on unforgiveness with him. And one thing I learned with him, that he wasn't going to change. You guys, it's easy to forgive someone when you can see them progressively changing sometimes. It's still a process to forgive, but it's easier when you see the changes developing because you know that they're trying to become that better person. So you find a soft spot sometimes in your heart to be able to be more receptive toward them because you see changes. But how do you forgive somebody when you don't see changes and they're progressively getting worse? How do you forgive them? And I had to go through a journey of forgiving Barron so that I personally could become free of everything that he ever did to me. So I had to get Barron's story first. And I sat and looked at his life. And my dad grew up, in the house with his mom and his dad, with my grandmother and grandfather. And my grandfather was a replica. Barron is a absolute cookie cut replica of my grandfather. So in order to figure out who Barron was as a person, I had to go back and look at my grandfather and see what happened along Barron's life that made him into the person that he was in our home. So my granddad, he was born in 1920, and his mom had been married twice. So she had two sets of kids. She had three or either four kids that was from one gentleman. Now, his mom was dark skinned, but the gentleman that she married was more fair skinned. So when they had children that were more lighter, fair skinned. Not fair skinned, but, borderline light skin, if that's what you want to call it. So that person, her and that person divorced. And so she married a gentleman named Henry. And Henry was dark skinned and she's dark skinned. So her second set of children, which had different last names, I think it was Howard and Smith, or no, it was Howard and Young. So the first set of kids were the Youngs and the second set of kids were the Howards. And that's where my grandfather was born. And he was dark skinned. Very, very dark. But that was my granddad. Now, you're talking about growing up in the era of the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, where it's a lot of racism and stuff like that against black people. But there was more advantages for those that were more fair-skinned. And so my grandfather, through research of talking to people and getting my granddad's backstory, was they were treated very indifferent. In the home, they were treated indifferent among family members. The darker skinned kids were, and even in society, they were treated different, even though they were all brothers and sisters. And so this made my granddad bitter. He saw a lot of changes. He saw a lot of injustice, and he experienced more injustice than his brothers and sisters did, being fair-skinned. So when he married my grandmother, I don't know what year they got married, and had Barron, my grandmother was very light, and my granddad is dark, so Barron is like more my color. And so because he was so bitter from society and things that was done to him, he was very, very negative to my dad and my uncle. And he would tell them they were good for nothing. He just had all this anger that was in them. And he would go off on them as young men. And I even remember as adults, my dad kind of feared my grandfather because he talked down to him. My granddad would talk down to him, tell him he was good for nothing, you're this, you're that, and all of that. And because my dad did not seek therapy, because, I don't know, he didn't journal, because he didn't face his own demons or either face his dad about how he felt, he did the same thing. He ran in the same cycle. So here it is, me, my sister, my brother, my two brothers are experiencing the exact same thing that his dad did to him. So there was no change. So here we are as adults, and I'm trying to so it helped me, first of all, to understand how Barron was the way that he was, because he never tried to change or do better. And so it's like, how can I do better for me? So here I am taking your negativity in and don't know where to put it. Well, I take that back. I'm taking your negativity in, and I know where to put it because I'm putting it in my heart. And I'm beginning to really not like you as a person, and is borderlining on hating you. And I know you're not supposed to hate your parents, and I go by the scripture, honor your parents, that your mother and father, that your days may be long. But that is not always easy to do. That is easy to do when your parents are great, but it is not easy to do when your parents are not great, but yet and still, it still stands. It doesn't say if you got great parents, honor them, and if you got shabby parents, don't honor them. It just says cut and dry. Mother and father, I don't care if your mom and dad are crack addicts. I don't care if they were abusive. It says to honor them. So here I am under this commandment, and how do I process that? How do I honor someone that never honored me? How do I respect someone that never respected me? How do I talk nice to somebody that never talked nice to me? Never said a positive word ever in life. Ever in life. And I'm 51 years old. Ever in life. And so I had to go through this journey of forgiveness. And when I learned his story, I had to work on forgiving him in spite of, even though he never, and still to this day, has not changed. It was not an easy journey. One thing I learned, you guys, to forgive him, I had to distance myself. Because when you're on this journey of forgiveness, some things are triggers and you're not there. You're not there mentally, you're not there emotionally, you're not there psychologically to be able, to be able to take any more hits from that person and not be reactive. So I had to put a distance between me and him, just first of all, you guys, to honor him, just to honor you. Because if I'm in your presence, I'm gonna let you have it. And I just wasn't there because I still had hurt, pain, and things in my heart toward him, which I didn't want to be there. So I had to go on a process of forgiving this man and knowing, look at this, that he was never going to say sorry. So I'm waiting. At first I was waiting for him, like, oh, I can definitely forgive him if he says he's sorry. But that day of being sorry never came. So how do you forgive somebody when the day of sorry is never going to come? Because they wasn't sorry, and they said what they said, and they meant what they said. Now, they may be sorry within, but they're never going to share with you or apologize to you that they're sorry. They're just dealing with the guilt on the inside because their pride would not allow him to open up his mouth and say, I'm sorry I treated you like that. So I'm waiting for this day of great victory to come, that he says he's sorry and then we hug each other and all of that. But if I even think about that, if he would have said he was sorry, the pain was still there. The pain was still there. So I had to learn how to love this man unconditionally. That's what helped me through the process of forgiveness, was to love him in spite of how he treated me. It's easy to love somebody that you're friends with, that love you back, that treat you right. But if I'm supposed to love my enemies, and he was an enemy of mine, that's my dad, but if you're not doing right by, but you're my enemy. You're my enemy. I had to learn to love him, you guys. And I knew it was a process. I just don't know when it actually happened. It just took some years. It took some years. But when I learned his story, I began to look at him differently, and I began to have pity for him, to see a young little black boy growing up in a house with a huge black man, which was my granddad, 6'4", 6'5", huge, big man, telling a little boy that you're nothing, that you are no good, that you're never going to be any good, that you're this, that you're that. I envisioned that in my mind, and I felt bad. So when my dad, I felt sorry for him. So when my dad was saying negative things to me, I was looking at him as this is that little boy that's saying the same thing that was said to him. And I would think in my mind, you lived your whole life, because my dad's well in his 70s now, but you lived your whole life and you never got therapy. You never talked to anyone about what was done to you as a child, and you lived your life, this whole 70 plus years of a journey. You never sought help. You never sought help. You never sat down with yourself and said, how can I be a better me? Or you never sat down with yourself and say, let me apologize to some people. I've apologized to plenty of people. I had to go back. But never enter your heart to go and apologize to people that you did wrong. And I began to look at my dad and feel so much pity for him. So much so that I would pray for him, because I knew he never let his childhood go. At 70-something years old, you're still that hurt little boy. And I don't remember the day, but I remember the moment that I knew he would never change, and that I had to totally forgive him, because he just is who he is. He just absolutely, he's going to be whoever he is going to be. Some people are just going to be who they are, and they are never going to change, and it's sad. I remember when my youngest brother passed away in 2014, and we went to the funeral, and it was a very, very sad day. We had to take my younger brother off of life support, and I mean, we all were there. My oldest brother, Tracy, my dad, my stepmom, and I mean, we cried so bad. And I knew Barron and JoJo was his favorite child, and JoJo lived with them because my dad's paralyzed, so he would help him. So he was just crying and crying, and I went and I hugged my dad. And maybe 2-3 months after the funeral, about 2-3 months after the funeral, I get a letter from Barron. And so in my mind, you guys, I'm thinking, we're going to reconnect. Because I'm his only biological child that's living. Tracy and Wendell were his stepkids, but I'm his only biological. So I'm thinking this is going to be the reconnection, because now I'm the only one of your biological children that is left. Now, mind you, he apologized to Tracy years ago, but he never apologized to me. So I'm like, this is going to be it. You guys, so I opened up the letter, and I'm ready to read it. And he was accusing me in this letter of trying to get credit cards in his name and trying to open accounts in his name, because he had went to the dealership. And when he had went to the dealership, you know how they pull up your credit report and it'll tell all your addresses, I guess, where you used to live. And the credit report said that he used to live at my address. And so he thought I was trying to scam him. You guys, the reason why his mail or some of his mail will come to my home, or why my address was even on there, because my dad, his wife, and JoJo lived with my grandmother. Now, if you guys been following me for a while, you know that I brought my grandmother with me to live for a couple of weeks and put her in a nursing home, but I had all her mail transferred to my house in Cincinnati. So periodically I would get mail for Barron and my brother, and sometimes I would get it from my granddad, and he had been dead since 94 or 95. So my address was on there because I did a change of address for my grandmother's address, and it was for all parties. But I was so hurt, you guys, because I get a letter thinking it's going to be a reconnection, and it's an accusation. And at that moment, I knew this dude is never going to change. And guys, it was nothing that I could do to ever make him think different of me. And that's the sad part, because I am definitely not the Sherry from my younger years. You listen to my story. I am not the Sherry from the younger years of sneaking in people's houses and fighting and all of that stuff that I was in 2014, or even now for that. But because he wanted to believe what he wanted to believe about me, it was nothing I can do to change his mind. You guys, if somebody thinks something about you, there is absolutely nothing you can do to change somebody's mind if they just want to think negative about you. And that was a hard pill to swallow, because if you talk to some of my older friends and the same friends now, they will tell you Sherry done did a whole 180. But he couldn't see that. He couldn't see that. And that's when I knew he's never going to change. And I had to work on forgiving him for that incident. And I just continued to work on forgiving him. And it was not easy. It was a journey, but I got there. So I can honestly say out of my mouth that I love my dad. It was not easy to love that brother. Oh, baby. Because it tests every bit of God in you. But I love him nonetheless. And I love him no matter how he is. That's between him and his own self. And whatever God he served, that's for him to work on him. But for me to work on me, I had to forgive him. And you know what, you guys? That was the most freeing thing ever, was to forgive somebody. I had to free myself from the abuse, because if I didn't free myself and forgive him, then I'm forever connected to all the negative words. I'm forever connected to the abuse. I'm forever connected to the acts that you did, the negative acts that you did toward me, and I didn't want to be connected to that. So forgiveness helped me to free myself, really, of my childhood experience. Now I tell my story as a testament to what you can live through, what you can endure through, and what you can even laugh at later. Now, at that moment when we were in those different scenarios and those stories, it was not funny. But now I can laugh about it. But now, before, there was times that ain't no giggling about that, because I was too hurt. That's when you know you got forgiveness, because you could sit back and say, girl, remember that guy cheated on you? Baby! But it was plenty of days that I cried about it and couldn't laugh about it. You guys, so I don't know where all that came from. I don't know. Forgive somebody today, y'all. Who knows? It's going to free you, honey. And don't worry about, well, they did me wrong and they this, and this. Yeah, but you the one over there crying. So when are you going to stop crying about things that was done to you that you cannot change? The only thing you can do is change your perspective, change your heart, change your mind, and change how you look at it. And it's the most freeing thing. And they can go and do the same thing to somebody else, and you can still just walk in your forgiveness. I had to be free of him. Now, if he's still bound up with hatred and envy and guilt and negative stuff from his childhood, he has to work on his own. But for me, I forgave what was done to me in my childhood. And guess what? I put it on YouTube, and I got subbies that listen to it, baby. You guys, I got a good one for tomorrow on the You Say What show. So make sure you come back. Put your comments down in the comment section. That's what they call it. And you guys, I'll come back with some parenting tips too. Ooh, I don't know about them crazy teenagers. Honey, it's going to take a whole lot of wine to get you through your teenage stage, honey, because them kids is off the chain. You guys have a wonderful day, and I will see you guys. You'll see me tomorrow. Bye.